Welcome to the Impromptu Life. This is Artettina, and we are going to be working on the flying snake or flying serpent. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video if you love artists and creation videos, cooking, building things, then please like and subscribe, and I welcome comments and responses. I love them. Thank you so much. Sometimes when I watch videos, I like to actually see more of the process in like a time-lapse manner. But sometimes lately I've been really just enjoying watching the stages, different stages of what the process is in stages, I guess, if that makes sense. And so right now, what I realize is I wanted to have more watercolor paper. This particular watercolor paper is more paper that I picked up that's actually textured, and it's pulp paper. The paper that I was using for some of the watercolor florals, some of them, not all of them, was a new type of paper that I was using, and it was 30% hot pressed cotton in with pulp. And it was quite the learning curve. Like, it felt much more like mixed media, thick mixed media paper, whereas the watercolor paper I'm used to using, it does have a slight texture, a little bit more like you would with 100% Arches cotton paper, which isn't really like, well, it's cotton paper. So I was cutting up to get about 12 pieces, even though the flying snake that we're going to be working on is on the mixed media. Well, it's actually watercolor paper, but I call it mixed media because it's smooth like a mixed media paper. This is Candy. She kind of thought that she'd help me out here for a minute. She wanted just some love. She wanted to sit next to me. It's funny too, because as much as it warms my little fuzzy heart, she's actually a very old cat. Doesn't she look great for her age? As much as I just love them around me all the time, it is very frustrating to get the hair stuck in your work. With the watercolors, not so much, but with acrylics or oil, oh my goodness, it is so frustrating. Sometimes I have to take an X-Acto knife and literally like scrape it out of the work. So if you ever buy one of my paintings and you actually find some tiny little hair somewhere, consider yourself blessed, because you have the hair of an amazingly wonderful, kind cat. But I try to make sure there's no hair in any of it. And I try to inspect my work too to make sure. Sometimes I've noticed in some of the photos that there'll be a hair on the art, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have to retake all these photos because it's not in the art, it's just on it. But that's what you get for having loving little animals around your house. So this right here is actually cut parchment paper. I cut it to fit into these little dishes. These dishes are that you can buy in a store actually for food, but I have noticed you can pop down the lid and it actually helps preserve any paint as well as with the extender. So you've mixed an extender into your paint, and then it just lasts a little bit longer. You can pop the lid on, you can put it in the freezer, or I even double zip it, like I'll put it in a Ziploc bag inside the thing. This is the size of paintbrushes that I'm going to be using for this project. I have a number 12 and I have a number 8, but I couldn't remember the size of this last one, and I didn't know where it was on there. It's one of the finer ones, like a 0 or a 1. I'm also going to be using this pencil, and this is a smooth paper. Even though it's a watercolor, very thick board-like paper, it is the smooth with, I believe, the 100% process or hot pressed. So here's our first stages where I'm just going to draw out the design. And what I have here is a flying serpent or snake, and I also put a little butterfly up in the corner. So we're just kind of working on this, still deciding on the design, which is kind of the fun part. It's funny when you break down each individual part. It's like, oh, this is the fun part. This is the fun part. But I lately have been liking the parts where there's very little thinking involved, like filling in a gold background or Yeah, the painting part and the drawing part, there is a lot more thinking going on as far as what's the value on this? Is that value too close to this value? Is this the right color or tone that's going to make it pop? I loved this snake, and I had my greens a little bit shaded into blues, which made it really just pop off the red because they're opposite colors, like on a color chart. And I really, really liked it. I almost didn't want to paint any gold in the image at all, but it's one of those things where you just kind of have to finish one part, decide. And the other tricky thing about acrylics, and I've mentioned it into another video before, if you have not painted with acrylics, they will dry a little darker than what they brush on. So you always want to keep that kind of in mind. And I also, with this one, brushed a little bit like with the pattern. So like if the underside of the snake is going to be going this way, I used my brush also just to get my textures and my designs that way. Like you want to use it as a paintbrush, not necessarily drawing your image, right? You just kind of want to paint it on. So we've got most of this, and I just loved how it was popping off the red. So I felt like my values are really getting into a good spot. Or I guess I should say more of the contrasts, right? My contrasts were really getting into a really good place. Like I thought it was just really, really beautiful. And it was at this point where I'm like, gosh, do I want to put gold behind him? And then I decided to do just gold in a circular pattern. So I decided to go that route instead. Here I'm going to go ahead and do a lot more of the details. So like in any painting, you kind of want the design to flow, and you want the eye to end somewhere. And although I realize in this one, especially with some of the special effects I did add some iridescence and some iridescent to the floral, and of course the gold, a little bit of iridescent to the butterfly. It can be a little bit more busy and distracting, but since I consider this a pop surreal piece, I wasn't really worried about that. I just wanted it to be gorgeous, beautiful. Beautiful, creepy? No, just gorgeous, beautiful. It's not creepy. I'm hoping I stayed away from slithery, and yet at the same time, he's kind of hunting. He's flying in the air and hunting down that butterfly. So in here, what I did is I put down the light stage, and then I'm coming over with the dark stage to give the scale effects. You can also go the other way. Like you could put down a dark background if you notice that your animal has more of a dark background underneath of its fur or scales or patterns, and then you would want to go light. But in this case, I really just wanted it to not be that way. You'll see that on his face too, where I put down the light and then did the scales in dark, and I did that under his chin as well, and then a little bit the opposite way on the top of his head. I was at one point considering, because of the colors of our flowers down below, of actually painting him with his tongue flicking out, like he's smelling the butterfly. And I'm still, I could have gone both ways, right? Like I still feel like that was an amazing idea. And should I do that idea? And then I was like, I'm going to do that on the next one. So I will be doing another reptile or serpent, little snake. And I'm going to tell you something very ridiculous while we're working on this. It's kind of a little story, but it seems like a lot of things that I paint, I'm going to sound so crazy, but sometimes I paint something and it shows up later. So I don't think I'm going to see any flying snakes. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say that necessarily. But where I'm moving to and the property that I purchased, I do know that they are known for rattlesnakes. So I kind of was like, do I really even want to paint this? Am I inviting this into my life? And I know that sounds really crazy, but I'm telling you, I paint things and they do have a tendency to show up. It's just a weird thing that happens.